NXT from December the 10th, 2024. We got to talk about this show. Solid enough show. Couple of good segments. Some good surprises as well. And some other interesting bits for us to get into. We're going to start the show by talking about Elijah Holyfield, who apparently will be making his debut on that LFG show that they're taping for A&E. There's been some still frames of him being out there. He is the son of boxing legend Evander Holyfield, which is pretty badass. I guess they're going to use him to boost that show. You know, he's a big dude. He looks pretty solid. I think he played football or something like that too. So ought to be very interesting when he's ready to run in NXT. Hopefully there's some good reports from people who are interested. I'm very interested in seeing how he does. And they letting him use his real name. Apparently they're not going to change his name. At least not yet. Maybe they'll change his name once he's on NXT proper. But at least for the purpose of being on that show, he will be Elijah Holyfield, which is his real name. All right, let's get into NXT. So Julia and Roxanne Perez, they start the show talking. Julia actually spoke English, and it was actually not too bad. Then Roxanne Perez claimed that Julia, she's already beat her, she's not on her level. Then they showed a video package of Stephanie Vaquer being down backstage. Well, I guess it wasn't a video package, it was kind of like a live feed. Just I was all starting to groan about another whodunit. It turns out that we were gifted immediately with whodunit. It was Cora Jade who attacked her with that stick she carries all the time. Then they proceed to jump Julia. Kalani Jordan ran down there and made the save. And this was the setup for a tag team match later in the show. Later, Kalani Jordan says that she is sick of Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez acting like they run the place. Talked about her resume and then said she could eat Cora Jade alive. Then she went on to get pinned by Cora Jade in the tag team match in the main event of the show. I would complain about the women main eventing yet again because I'm not sure that there needs to be a women's main event every single week. I know that the women are sort of the big story of NXT, but I'm not thinking that it's always beneficial to the women to have the main event, especially since the North American title hasn't main evented one of these shows in months, I think. And they're not even really doing much of anything to lift that title up from the doldrums. We'll talk about that in a second. But Stephanie Vaquer attacked Cora Jade after the match and chased her. And Cora Jade, with her massive titties, she couldn't even run away. Just Cora Jade's mobility is hilarious to me. Because it's not great. Yes, people make fun of guys like Trick Williams, and people make fun of Alexis King, and people make fun of Ridge Holland about their mobility. But Cora Jade is like same, right? Like she's not athletic at all. She's not naturally athletic anyway. Roxanne Perez and Julia ended up fighting off in the middle of the match, so the show ended with Stephanie chasing Cora Jade. This nice little four-way feud they've been having here, I don't have a problem with this. I think that it was pretty good. They didn't have, Julia has pinned Roxanne Perez before, if I remember correctly. I think it was a tag team match. So they avoided that. Instead, they gave Cora Jade the win because she needed to win. I'm not a big fan of, Kalani Jordan losing a bunch of matches, but, I mean, they're doing something with Cora Jade. There's a story there. So it's sensible that she would win. I'm just questioning that we need to have a women's opening and closing every week. It seems like, yes, they get a lot of positive attention for it, but it's not always deserved that the women will main event the show. But that seems to be the main title that they're leaning on right now was the women's belt, which I can't say is a bad idea. Javon Evans defeated Wes Lee in the first match on the show. which was a pretty fun match. It was what you would expect between two high-flying guys, but it wasn't a lot of aerial maneuvers. It was a mixture of solid work and Javon Evans doing some aerial stuff. Javon Evans actually kicked out of Wes Lee's finisher, which tells me that Wes Lee's probably on his way out of NXT. Because when somebody kick out of your finish and they're not a main event guy, that kind of sucks for you, you know. So Wes Lee, this is the second time he's lost to Javon Evans, I believe. Javon Evans, he's still in the same position, still one of the top tier baby faces for the men, but not a main event babyface by any stretch of the imagination. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not the North American title holder by February. I think that's probably who they're going to end up doing with him. Is instead of putting the big belt on him, it's going to end up being the North American belt. And guess what? That's fine too. You know, it's actually a perfect title for somebody like him, considering he can occupy that sort of Carmelo Hayes portion of NXT. The only problem is I think he needs to work on his personality. And that I forgot to talk about how terrible that punch was that Wes Lee threw at Deadline, because it was nowhere near the face of Javon Evans. It was just the shits. Very bad. There was some discourse about, Wes Lee cutting his hair. And people think that he kind of looks bland and kind of Flanderish with his haircut. And thought the dreads helped him stand out. Well, there's like three other guys in the company with dreadlocks. So it's not like it was the most unique thing in the world. But he does look kind of Flanderish. And to be quite honest, that kind of helps him stand out. Now he looks like he, carries a pocket protector. But whatever. I think at this point, he is a super senior of NXT. It should be time to get him out of there. So Wes Lee losing on his way out, I don't have a problem with that. So Tony D'Angelo, he went over to talk to Ethan Page, offer Ethan Page a championship match to get him back on track. Ethan Page said that he carried this brand as the NXT champion and that the North American title is beneath him. So Tony D'Angelo was like, okay. And then so he was going to offer an open challenge. When everybody was willing to take the match, Ethan Page then accepted and said that this may be the end of his career if he cannot win this match. And then, of course, he did not win this match. Tony D'Angelo defeated Ethan Page. The match was okay. I'm not a big Ethan Page guy, not really a fan, really. I am a fan of Tony D'Angelo, but they have kind of, since the Oba Femi story ended, they haven't been doing much of anything with this title. And I think it's been one of the weaker booked titles in NXT. Every other title has been given opportunities to expand and to have bangers and storylines, etc., except this belt. After the Oba Femi story, Tony D'Angelo fell off a cliff. And that was kind of, that's problematic for me, because when the men's division is so weak, I guess you could say, it's an issue that you have a champion running around who is not very visible, and you openly have somebody disrespect his title by saying it's beneath him. Yes, he won the match anyway, but still, you don't want to put that in people's minds, So after the match, Ethan Page was disgusted with himself, talked about how he lost his way, said he thought he's not good enough to win the North American title. He's not good enough to get back to the NXT championship. He's feeling lost and ashamed. Lost and ashamed is perfectly reasonable if your name is Ethan Page, because Ethan Page is not good. But I will say this. I think they're opening the door for Josh Alexander to come in, because he's lost to both of the singles champions and he's lost the number one contendership for the singles title. The only other option we got left is the tag team belts. And Josh Alexander was his regular tag team partner in TNA, and they were the tag team champions of the North. And since Axiom and Nathan Fraser are still the tag team champions, have been for a while, and it seemed like they were going to be the tag team champions because they have nobody to beat them. Ethan Page and Josh Alexander seem like a fine team that you will put over Axiom and Nathan Fraser. in order to at least take the belts off of Axiom and Nathan Fraser and have the North be the tag. I guess they would call them the North. Would be the standard bearers for the tag team division. At least that's my perception of what's happening here. If they decide to do something else with Ethan Page, that would be fine too. Like if they decide to call him up, which, it probably would be smart to do that. He doesn't need to be in NXT. He could easily be a low mid-carder on SmackDown. So that could work too, but I would think that if they are going to bring in Josh Alexander, putting him with Ethan Page is probably the best option right now. So Lexis King went over and asked Charlie Dempsey for a Heritage Cup rematch. Dempsey said he was thinking about it. Then he went over and told the No Quarter Catch crew how he was proud of them even though they lost. And then they were mocked by OTM and Jada Parker. Jada Parker then went over to Ren Sinclair and said she should thank her for the spot in the Iron Survivor Challenge. They had words. I thought they were going to end up having a match tonight, but no. It seemed like Jada Parker is now moving on to wrestling or being involved with a Ren Sinclair, which is fine. They have ideas for Jada Parker because there was no Lola Vice on this show. Lola Vice won that match and was not featured at all on this show. Very weird. Nathan Fraser and Axiom, they both had the idea of appreciating each other and their hard work. Axiom was very proud of Nathan Fraser and what he was able to do in the Iron Survivor Challenge, while Nathan Fraser was thankful that Axiom carried the team in the Tag Team Championship match. And Axiom was upset that Nathan Fraser had gotten his ass beat by Femi, so he went and challenged Femi. Nathan Fraser was very disappointed about not doing his part in the Tag Team Championship match, so he went and got a Tag Team title match made for next week. And we found out that both matches are next week, and Axiom has to wrestle twice. And now he's upset. He went from being very appreciative of Nathan Fraser to being upset at him, because now he's got to wrestle twice. So Nathan Fraser is like, hey man, if anybody can do it, you can. And Axiom is like, look at you. Like you beat the shit, look at you. Okay, their opponents are Gallus, so I'm pretty comfortable that Axiom and Nathan Fraser are going to win. I don't think this match is going to bang like all the other ones because it's Gallus. And even though I was a fan of Gallus, they have gotten quite stale over the course of the last 3 years or so. And I don't see why they get in a tag team championship match. I just don't know what they've done to earn it outside of being around for a long time. Speaking of being around for a long time, Josh Briggs is back from Japan. Well, he's been back for a while. He brought somebody with him. I don't know how he got this guy through customs. Some guy named Inamura. Briggs liked Inamura. It was impressed by him in Japan. Inamura was impressed by Briggs' style and compared him to Stan Hansen, which I almost got an ulcer just thinking about that. Then Briggs said he didn't want to be in a tag team, but he doesn't have to deal with the immaturity that he had to deal with in the last tag team he was in, and that together they're going to end the tag team division. Inamura talked about how he lives to create chaos. They refuse to let this guy wrestle on TV. This is like the 5th time I've seen him. He hasn't stepped in the ring yet. But I'm not mad. I always am a fan of... he has stepped in the ring, I'm sorry. He was in that Battle Royal. But I'm always a fan of building the characters up, building up the storyline first, and then you get in the ring. I'm just not a big fan of this Josh Briggs guy. Comparing him to Stan Hansen because they both do clotheslines is pretty ridiculous. It's like, no, he's nothing like Stan Hansen at all, actually. Inamura is too young to have watched Stan Hansen. He probably watched tapes or something, maybe. Anyway, Zarya was watching television because she's perfectly normal and not a Mad Max, which is what we thought she was going to be. She was there with Sol Ruka talking about how fun it was being in the Iron Survivor Challenge, which I don't know if I would ever want a wrestling match described as fun. I don't think it should be described as fun or, maybe exciting. or interesting or whatever, but getting your ass kicked for 25 minutes doesn't sound like it was fun, but she wasn't even in there that entire time. Anyway, Lash Legend mocked them for losing and said that if it was, and Jakara Jackson said if it was either one of them, either her or Lash Legend, they would have won the Iron Survivor Challenge. Lash Legend told Zarya that she couldn't hang with her, and then Sol Ruka stood up for her. So they're leading to a tag team match next week. There was going to be Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson versus Zarya and Sol Ruka. I'm okay with this. I thought they was going to do something stupid, like have Zarya wrestle Lash Legend and sacrifice Lash Legend to Zarya, but they can build it up. I'm okay with this. Lash Legend not being featured at all at the show was kind of weird, because it seems like they're working on taking her out. You know, she had a couple of SmackDown spots, her and Jakara Jackson. It seems like they might be working their way of taking Lash Legend out of NXT. So they might be on their last run. So I expect Jakara Jackson to take the pinfall, though. And I'm actually looking forward to how Zarya and Lash Legend may be able to work together against each other. All right, Hank and Tank wrestled TNT. I don't know who their name is, like Tyreek and Tyrone. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't care about this match. I barely watched it. The Nigerian T is the one who was upset at losing and was a poor sport. He wouldn't shake hands. So he walked off. I guess this team is over already, or I don't know. These guys came out of nowhere. All four of these guys. Hank, I believe, was a security guard in NXT. And that was his character, and they've been using him since. But the other three guys seemingly came out of nowhere with no introduction. They were just there, and they started working long matches. Like, what the hell is going on here? I don't like that. Not a fan of that. So I didn't pay this match no attention. I need to take a break anyway. Oba Femi came out there. Him, Trick Williams, and Eddie Thorpe had a segment. Oba Femi talked about how him and Trick both have been dominant, but now it's time to figure out who the most dominant top guy is. Trick Williams came out there, and before he got to say much of anything, Eddie Thorpe came out and said that him and his people have suffered enough. Then he blamed Oba Femi for attacking him, saying that he may not have seen who attacked him, but he knows that he had never been hit so hard. And the only person who could ever hit that hard is Oba Femi. Oba Femi thanked him for the compliment, but then turned his attention back to Trick Williams and said that he didn't really want to deal with Eddie Thorpe. So Trick Williams talked about making his legacy as the NXT champion. It has to be defined by the people that he beat, and he can't wait to beat Oba Femi. Oba Femi then said that the only reason there was a whoop that Trick era, the only reason Trick Williams was the number one guy was because Oba Femi allowed it, and that at any point in time he could take that belt easily. Then he promised to end the whoop that Trick era at New Year's Eve, and he walked on off. The whole time Eddie Thorpe was still standing there. The whole time he was listening to that conversation and everything, just pacing back and forth like a mental patient. Then as soon as Oba Femi was gone, Eddie Thorpe started up on Trick Williams, saying that he thought that Trick Williams was going to stand up for him and press Oba Femi on attacking him, but he didn't do that. He thought Trick Williams was a stand-up guy, thought he was a man of the people, but it turns out Trick Williams is just a manufactured sports entertainer. We're going back to using sports entertainer as a pejorative now. He said he wants a championship match because there's no way a guy like Trick Williams could hang with him, and says that Trick Williams wouldn't last 2 weeks in the dojos in Japan that he trained in. Trick Williams told him to shut his ass up. Then, which was funny, then he said he's sick of all these doubters. He got no problem whooping anybody's ass backstage. And if he wants the match, he can have it. And then he sucker punched Eddie Thorpe, which was all great. Eddie Thorpe was actually decent here as a promo. He actually might be able to find himself as a heel, because I'm actually more interested in him as a heel. Oba Femi, of course, was amazing. And Trick Williams, he stumbled a little bit in the promo with Thorpe, but he was his regular charismatic self usually. Trick Williams is almost unimpeachable on the mic. So after the show went off the air, right before, as the ending credit scene, Ava was telling Eddy Thorpe, as Eddy Thorpe was signing his championship match against Trick Williams, I don't know if it was next week or in 2 weeks, that they're still working on finding out who attacked Eddy Thorpe. And Eddy Thorpe, after he signed the contract, says, "You're looking at him. Now I got my championship match and I didn't have to wrestle 25 minutes and go through 5 other people." And Ava was pissed off. Eddy Smollett. They pulled an Eddy Smollett. He set himself up to be injured and taken out of the Iron Survivor Challenge. It was all a ruse. Ava got hoodwinked. Ava got led astray. Ava got hustled. Hey, I gotta tell you, man. I like that angle. I like it. It doesn't make sense in so much as that he was not medically cleared. So something tells me, like, did he hit himself? Or was it that he was faking the pain and suffering that he was in and basically got himself taken out of the match? Like, I wonder how that is going to be, or if it's even going to be addressed, because the doctor said he wasn't medically cleared. You know, it'd have been a different thing if he just said, "I don't think I can make it," or something like that, and then they replaced him. But if the doctor said that he wasn't medically cleared, it means that he was actually checked up on by doctors. But then again, if it's like a closed head injury or a back injury or something like that, you never can tell. But I did like this. I thought it was very smart. And they're throwing a lot at getting Eddy Thorpe over. You know, they're serious about getting this guy over, and he's raising his game. He was already better as a promo. He's already showing more personality. That's all it took. That's all I ever asked for. All I ever asked for from these guys is to show some personality and do some stuff, and for the company to show that they're serious about what they're doing. Eddy Thorpe, they're serious. They went through all of this trouble. At least they're serious with him. Now, a lot of people thought that the Ava storyline, the punchline was going to be that Lance Anoa'i had jumped Eddy Thorpe for putting his hands on Ava. And I was like, I don't like that idea because it's more bloodline shit. And do we need bloodline shit on NXT really? Not really, right? So this is better. Him being Eddy Smollett is better because now all the heat is on Eddy Thorpe. Now they're going to blow it off because Trick Williams is going to beat him. It's not even the important bit here. The important bit here is now the heat between Ava and Eddy is going to be able to continue because she has been made a fool of by this guy. So, but I like that this heel turn all started because Eddy Thorpe was feeling looked over. Wasn't getting opportunities. And so he started making these opportunities for himself. So by going out and making trouble. And he was able to make these opportunities for himself. So I like it. This worked out, and I got a big pop out of that whole deal. Not going to lie to you. So Jacy Jayne and Fallon Henley had their first argument, which led to Jacy Jayne rolling her eyes. And that was over why Gigi Dolan is back in NXT. Jacy thinks she's back because she's obsessed with her. Which, of course, the old Toxic Attraction stuff. While Fallon Henley thinks that Gigi Dolan is back because she wants that North American title, which is obviously likely. Jasmine was in between them, said, you know, it doesn't matter. We just got to go out here and win this match. So as they went to the ring, and then Gigi and Paxley was going towards the ring, and they got stopped by Izzy Dame. There were some words there. And then Izzy Dame had to talk to Shawn Spears, which is a waste of her time and her oxygen. And I don't want Izzy Dame to get mixed up with Shawn Spears. That would be unfortunate, but at least it would be something for her to do. Fatal Influence, which was Jacy Jayne and Fallon Henley, defeated Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley. When Jacy Jayne actually pinned somebody, which it feels like it's been forever since the last time Jacy Jayne actually pinned somebody in NXT. Speaking of super seniors, my God, Jacy Jayne has been in NXT forever. Anyway, after the match, Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley both got jumped by Fatal Influence, and who came in for the save but Shotzi Blackheart, aka Shotzi, and the first thing she did after she threw a couple of punches was do a dive between the ropes right after a neck injury. She comes right in and dives in the ropes. You know what? Shotzi and Gigi as a tag team, I like that. They have similar energy. I like that idea. And it was a big surprise. Everybody was happy that Shotzi was there. I was surprised to see her. I always thought Shotzi might have been on the cutting board, but glad that she's back. Hopefully she gets to show a little bit more of what she can do. She's been back and forth in NXT since 2020. I believe Shotzi came in either just before or just after WWE fully bought Evolve and then closed it down during the pandemic. I think it was just before Evolve closed, if I remember correctly. There's only like 3 or 4 people still remaining from that time. Austin Theory, Josh Briggs, Raquel Rodriguez, and Shotzi. That's it. That's the list. Pretty much everybody else is gone. Now, I wouldn't count like the Street Profits or anybody like that because they were signed to NXT and then went over to Evolve. But people who were, I think, under some kind of Evolve contract before they came to NXT was those 4, I believe. And they're the only ones still around, which is amazing. Quite amazing. And Shotzi, oh man, she's been in and out of NXT and up and down the roster. She hadn't found her groove yet. But the crowd at NXT at least likes her. And I like the idea of Shotzi and Gigi as a tag team. I think that could work, especially on the main roster. They're different, but they're similar. Their team with Tatum Paxi could be fun too. This whole thing could be interesting. Shotzi versus Fallon Henley for the North American title could be interesting. Even though I don't think I've seen a Shotzi singles match in months that I thought was, well, she ain't wrestled in months, but I don't think I've seen one in years, actually, that I thought was all that impressive, but I'm willing to give her more chances, I guess. Shotzi's just kind of lovable, I think. You know, she's one of those people that, even though she's not fantastic at anything, she kind of has daredevil charisma, and you kind of, like, okay, go out there and destroy yourself. See you in 6 months, and then you'll come back and break something else, and then see you in 8 months, and then you'll come back and tear up something else, and maybe one day you'll win something, you know? So I like this. I thought it was a really great surprise. They're continuing to strengthen the women's division. The men's division, still suffering. The long-suffering men's division. I don't like that they kind of threw away the Ethan Page, Tony D'Angelo story in one night, which tells me that they're probably going to end up having to bring somebody in to help elevate Ethan Page, which is the only option I think I can think of is Josh Alexander. Otherwise, they need to start bringing some more guys in. Okay, you did what you could for Ridge Holland, but he wasn't featured on this show, and now you've beaten him. Tony D'Angelo needs a feud. He needs a pony. Look, over Femi and Trick Williams, I'm all about that. I'm completely punched in on that. You don't have to sell me on that. I'm there. You got me. It's everything else that might be a problem. Julia and Roxanne Perez, I'm kind of locked in on that too. I do like that. I mean, even though they've wrestled before, I know it's going to be different. So I'm kind of in on that. But the tag team titles seem to be, there's no other team that's hot that can challenge Fraxium right now. The women's North American title at least is in the middle of something, so that's fine. But the men's North American title is not really in the middle of anything. Having the Ethan Page, Tony D'Angelo thing in one night, I think was a problem. They should have built that up over a couple of weeks. And then have Ethan Page, who continues to think that title is beneath him, you know, but he's going to use this to get his groove back. Maybe he wrestles Luca Crucifino and beats him. Then he wrestles Stax and beats him. Just proves that, you know, he doesn't need that belt. He's better than that belt. And then figure, you know what, I'm going to prove it by winning that belt. And then he loses, and then we have this spiral. But they seemingly have decided to jump the gun on that. So there must be some kind of reason why they decided to jump the gun. Hopefully they don't do something silly like Ethan Page tries to challenge for the Heritage Cup next, and then he loses that match too. Because the Heritage Cup is ice cold as well. Dempsey, people forgot that he even had it, to be quite honest. So, really, the hottest belts are the women's belt, Trick's belt, and the tag team titles. Everything else is kind of middling. And you need to have a fuller show. I know I've been saying for a while, well, everybody said it, the women's division is the best in the world. It's quite frankly one of the best booked, best stacked women's divisions in the entirety of professional wrestling. The issue is the men are the meat. The women are the sizzle, you know. It's cool that you got Julia and Stephanie Vacker and all this stuff is happening. You know, you brought Shotzi back. All that's fine. Nobody's going to complain about that. If you're going to have a women's division, it should at least be good, and it should at least be interesting, and there should be stars there. The problem is there needs to be stars in the men's division too. So you have to do something. Tony D'Angelo is lukewarm right now. Javon Evans is kind of at a roadblock where he's kind of hasn't moved up or down in months. He hasn't really had much in the way of character progression or storyline progression, and that's unfortunate. Somebody like Wes Lee, you went through all the trouble of turning him heel on the rest of his team over in TNA, and then you didn't really capitalize on it. I think he lost the big match with Zachary Wentz. I think he won the rematch, but he hasn't done anything since. He's only lost since. So he hasn't done anything major since then. It seemed like a natural fit for him to have that match with Trick Williams. They decided not to have it. So there's that. And you went through all the trouble of building Ridge Holland, and then you had him get beat, and now he's gone. You don't know where he is. You went through all the trouble to have Eddie Thorpe set up his own injury so that he can get a one-on-one match with Trick Williams, and he's just going to lose too. So you got to be able to build some momentum and keep it. And I think that's the important bit here, is that the men have some talent. You're doing interesting things there, but you have to be able to build on it week to week and not just tell me Trick Williams is going to beat this guy in 2 weeks and then that's it, because that's not going to maintain the division, you know. But at least they're doing something. They're trying, and I can't be mad at that. So NXT, fun show, good surprises, matches were decent, great storyline progression for some people, in terms of Eddie Thorpe and Femi, and in terms of Cora Jade, good storyline progression. So what do you guys think? And I'll talk to you later.